So a year has passed since the Spy Family anime was released, and it's amazing how a show like that can have a huge presence with a lot of anime fans. I mean, it's really hard to find a show that does everything right, as each story is tightly written and all the characters are exceptional. Well, most of them anyway. And let's not forget how memeable the show is, mainly when it comes to Anya and her expressions. Hell, I often use gifs of Anya's face at work to get my point across. And with the new season on the way, as well as an original film, it's safe to say that this series is only going to get better. But there's a while till we see that come to fruition, so it's not like there's another show that can fill the whole Spy Family... Oh, hang on. Oh wait, there is! Buddy Daddies is a slice-of-life anime from PA Works, which tells the story of two assassins who find themselves taking care of a little girl. Now, as you might expect, the reaction to this anime was outrageous to say the least, as the show was announced around the time Spy Family was still going, and some of the fans weren't too happy with it. Some thought it was a rip-off, and a lazy attempt to cash in on Spy Family's fame, which considering the timing is fair, but there are others that thought this would revolve around a same-sex relationship, and decided not to watch it because of that. I try not to judge people for their reasons to not watch certain stuff. I mean, if you don't want to watch it, fair enough, but I did find these complaints a bit odd. First off, calling it a rip-off, sure the timing is odd, but Spy Family isn't using an original concept, as you can go back and find all the films and shows that focus on a person or persons who find themselves in a position to take care of a child not related to them. One example that comes to mind is Tokyo Godfathers. Brilliant film by the way, but for non-anime films you have stuff like The Pacifier, The Spy Next Door, and Three Men and a Baby starring Tom Selleck. Wow, I've not seen that film in ages. The point is that Spy Family isn't original, and writers are constantly inspired by other stories, and often borrow stuff that works because, well, people like it, and they do too. It's only a problem if a show copies another piece of work without changing anything, especially if it's worse than the original. But Buddy Daddies, you'd be happy to know, doesn't do that, and it even stands on its own 2 feet. As for the main character's sexuality, yeah, this isn't in the show, since the main characters are in fact co-workers instead of lovers, and even if they were, it shouldn't really affect your enjoyment of a show. I know a lot of people aren't exactly fond of watching stories with LGBT characters in them, but I would say you should give them a chance before coming to that decision. Either way, this show has a lot to offer, possibly more than Spy Families, so let's just dive into Buddy Daddies. So we start the show following our 2 main characters, Rei Suwa and Kazuki Kurusu, as they chase down their targets, but before they can finish him off, they receive a call from a teacher asking them to pick up someone. So the two quickly wrap up their job and rushes down to their location to deal with this emergency. We then flash back a year earlier where we see the duo as they go about their normal lives. Kazuki is a womanizer who delights in living the bachelor lifestyle, whereas Rei is a recluse who can barely take care of himself, as he spends most of his time playing video games. And from these quick shots, we see that the two are well aware of how dangerous their line of work is. They opt to live life however they please, not caring whether they live or die. However, this will soon change as the two are assigned to kill a human trafficker in this snazzy hotel. They manage to infiltrate security effortlessly, and all goes well. That is until a little girl arrives and rushes past security. And here we're introduced to Miri, who has come to the city to find a Papa. Bewildered at this encounter, Kazuki pretends to be Santa and asks her to wait in the elevator. Excited at the prospect of meeting her father, Miri ignores Kazuki as she inadvertently blows the duo's cover, and they end up in a shootout which ends up with their target taking Miri hostage. Realizing the predicament they're in, Kazuki proclaims himself as the girl's father and uses the distraction to kill the target. He, along with Rei, takes her back home, and their situation grows much more complicated as they realize that they've just killed Miri's biological dad. And so begins the duo's journey to raise a hyperactive child in Japan, while maneuvering through the challenges in doing so. So not exactly what you expect from a Spy Family ripoff. No Cold War espionage, no spies, and definitely no telepathic child who can make funny faces. Okay, so maybe there's a bit of that. But this series makes it clear that there's more to it than that. And I'm actually quite fond of this trope in stories, since these characters are already badass hitmen. So instead of challenging the characters in terms of their skills as assassins, they're instead challenged in something they're not familiar with. And because of this, they must learn to overcome these challenges, which in turn have them develop not only as characters, but as parents, as now we see these cold-blooded hitmen struggle as they try to care for a child who has proven to be a handful. Miri is the catalyst for our two killers, as they're confronted with their perspective in life and they realise there's more to it than killing. And interestingly, the show goes to great lengths to portray the difficulties of raising a child in Japan. From applying them to a daycare to ensuring that they're cared for, this anime really wants to dive into these issues. And I read that the two creators of the show split the work, so the creator with the child would work on the family scenes, whereas the creator without one would do the action scenes. As you can really see, there was a lot of care to get this right, as the family scenes were incredibly wholesome and surprisingly relatable. Now I don't have any kids, but there's a 10-year gap between me and my youngest sister, so I know what it's like to live with children in the house. And this show really captures the trouble of keeping a 4-year-old in check, and the anime definitely brought out some flashbacks. Although that's not to say it's without fault, as the two aren't able to carry out their jobs as hitmen, so their professional life is put on hold for most of the season. And this is where I'm twofold, because at one point I understand why they put the hitman stuff on the back burner, as they wanted to put the focus on these two raising a child, and it would be frankly impossible to continue their dangerous lifestyle with her involved. Hell, they even showed this backfiring on them at one point. But at the same time, I would have liked to see them take on more jobs once they were able to get settled, as this is seen at the beginning and the end, but in the middle it's just non-existent, as I feel it would be interesting to see how it would affect the duo's work ethic with Miri in the picture. And it's also a shame because one of the things I like about this show was how dark it could get. I really like it when shows are able to balance the light and dark themes together, as there's something about shows that are able to dip their toes into each without it feeling out of place. I guess it comes from my love of Phoenix Wright, since the games are able to mix gruesome murder investigations with wacky characters and ridiculous outbursts. It really was an effective way to throw curveballs at the player, as it makes figuring out who the killer is that much harder, and the outbursts add to the thrill of catching the culprit. And this anime sprinkles a bit of macabre in the series, which balances out the cuteness overload in each episode. But damn it, I wanted more, as the premise of the show was perfect to balance the feel-good family moments and the hitman lifestyle, but because of its focus on raising a family, it kind of misses out on showing us these darker moments, which is a shame because the anime really nails it when it does. Instead, there is a heavy slant to it being more light-hearted, when I think it should have been 50-50. But on the bright side, at least the characters hit their mark, as the main duo work really well in complementing each other. As Kazuki is the prickly mother hen, constantly getting on Rei's case about the littlest Sphinx, and is also the home cook for the family. This is then contrasted with Rei, who is an incredibly skilled assassin, but completely useless as a functional human being. And this puts him at odds with Kazuki, who pesters him constantly for his laziness. And it's amazing how the anime was able to build their relationship, as we see how despite their differences, they enjoy each other's company to the point where they're able to work effectively as assassins. It's kinda like a buddy cop drama, with both characters playing their roles perfectly. You really understand why they're like this, and how the two really need each other more than they realise. But the main star of the show is definitely Miri, who was also subject to a bit of ire from people, as there were many people who found Miri annoying, as she never really helped her parents in any way, as she spent most of her time messing around and causing more hassle than needed. Some even said that Miri was too far off as to what a kid is, and honestly, I don't agree with that. Because when it comes to kids, there isn't a one size fits all, as you can have kids who are mature and well mannered like Anya, well for the most part, but there are some kids who are just balls to the wall crazy, as they've got so much energy that they don't even blink when they take a tumble. I remember my little sister being a lot like Miri when she was younger, and thinking back to it is kind of chilling. I mean, she's a teenager now, but I swear yesterday she was still taking out covers from our old games and eating the paper. And even when we put them somewhere she can't reach, she was still able to climb up to them like she was Spider-Man. How does a child do that? But the point is that Miri is a child like any other, and she is the reason why the main characters change, as they realise life is worth living due to Miri. Sure, there are times the anime can push it with what Miri is capable of, but for the most part, she's a bundle of joy who can brighten everyone's day. Hell, I would say I enjoyed her presence more than Anya, as Anya made me laugh at her expressiveness, but Miri put a smile on my face because there are loads of kids like her who have this sense of joy that you can't help but protect. Not to say I don't like Anya, but I like her for different reasons, and Miri for her own. Again, I'm not fond of the comparisons, but I feel I have to point this out because of the way people disapprove of her. But these characters really work well with each other as they bond. They begin to grow close and get past their own issues, and this series delves into a theme which I find myself growing fond of lately, and that's choosing your family. As many people would say, family is all about blood, and for the most part, that's true. But Buddy Daddies say that family is more than blood, it's the people we choose, and here, Miri chose Rei and Kazuki to be a family, and vice versa. It may not be the most perfect family, but it's a family that cares for each other and can rely on each other. I think the last story I remember doing this was the Guardian of the Galaxy game 2 years ago. Man, I love that game to bits, and I love the main theme of it. As the Guardians were Peter Quill's family, and as the game progressed, their bonds grew closer once they realised they need each other more than they realise. And it's exactly the same here, as Kazuki and Rei realise how much they need Miri because of how much her presence have affected them, and eventually it seems like they're almost inseparable. But unfortunately, even the best relationships are strained, and the later episodes are no different. And those problems are right in the spoiler sections, so if you don't want to know any more, then just stop right here. But if you're intrigued, let's do this. So a year has passed since Miri has lived with the Papas, and out of the blue, Miri's mother returns into the fold. Kazuki initially sought Miri's mother, who rejected Miri outright, but compared to his last visit, she seems to have turned her life around. They soon learn that Miri's mother has cancer and wishes to spend her remaining time with her daughter. So the two hesitantly return Miri and go back to their own lives, although letting go of their daughter hits them harder than they originally thought. Unfortunately, things aren't ready to go back to normal just yet, as early in the season, Rei's father had requested him to take his place as leader of his organization. However, Rei had refused, and his father catches on to his connections, so he has his assassin kill Miri's mother. But before he can kill Miri, Kazuki appears and flees with her. Realizing the organization will not leave them be, the two drop Miri off at a Christmas performance and launches an assault at the headquarters. After fighting off the goons and killing the assassin that murdered Miri's mother, Rei confronts his father and proclaims he is done with the life, recounting his time with Miri having changed him. To show his resolve, he shoots his arm, proclaiming he is incapable to take over the family business, and so he leaves his father, who begrudgingly accepts his decision. Despite their wounds, they quickly don their Santa outfits and arrive at Miri's performance, whose eyes sparkle as she sees her papas arrive. The three pose for a photo, and we are then treated to a time skip. Miri is now a teenager, Rei and Kazuki have opened a restaurant, and all is well in their new lives. And the show ends with Miri posing with her two papas one final time, as they live their lives as daughters' daddies. Are you for real? An anime that actually shows the future? The time skip took me by surprise when I saw it. I didn't think they would wrap up all the loose ends like that. Perhaps it being an original animation, there weren't any chances for a sequel, so it's best to tie everything up in a nice bow instead of leaving it. And while I wouldn't mind seeing more of Miri growing up, I'm glad the anime gave us a satisfying conclusion. But that's Buddy Daddies, and while on the surface it may seem like a rip-off, underneath it all, it's a well done story about the struggles of parenthood and how raising a family can be a fulfilling experience. The characters fought tooth and nail for a chance to raise Miri in a safe environment, and by the end they gained their just desserts, and I can't really ask for more. Honestly, this anime deserves a lot more recognition, and PA Works have outdone themselves and are continuing to do so with their new show, so I would highly recommend you guys to give this show a shot. Whether you like Spy Family or not, Buddy Daddies absolutely rocks. Oh my god, why did I make that rhyme?